Yo Internet, what is happening? Welcome back. The day has come. It's time to start the Coyote swap on the S197. We're going to get the 4.6 out of there today, and hopefully by the end of this afternoon I'll have the Coyote and everything back in place, at least all the mechanicals done, and then ready to do the real meat and potatoes of the wiring. So let's do this dance. But first, I'm going to give this thing a bath. Don't really like working on dirty cars, especially under the hood. Usually washed under hood on this thing a few times over like the past couple of years I've been dailing it, so it's not too grimy, but we're going to give it one final bath before we send the 4.6 down. Box behind me here, as you can see, been working on that past week actually, fixing the brakes, getting it back to driving duties as far as street driving. Kind of missed the car. It's a good looking machine. Been working on the cowl, straighten that out as much as I could as far as the metal goes, and now it's ready for some filler and paint, and I can get it back on the road. And then we're going to swap in the S197 in its place right now to get it on the lift, and then I'm going to show you kind of how I'm going to approach things as far as what systems or parts to take out first to drop the engine out the bottom, which frankly I've never done myself. I've seen it done a lot of times, so the lift is what I've been waiting for to do the swap essentially, because I really wanted to make it more easier on myself, and it's making everything easier to work on in here, so here we go. So in order to drop this thing off from the bottom, it's probably going to be a little simpler than if it had to come from the top, because we have to keep the transmission on the engine. And so we'll definitely be taking the drive shaft out, dropping the H-pipe, steering shaft, because some frame's going to go down with the engine, of course. Probably take the battery harness out, radiator, overflow tank, tie up the hoses. I'm going to try and keep the AC system intact, so I'm just going to disconnect the AC compressor and hopefully get out of the way. I'm not sure if that's going to work or not, looking at it now. It's going to be worth a shot, but we got some good friends in the neighborhood that can evacuate the system and store that Freon for us in the meantime. So that's about the basics. Here's a quick little list I kind of made on the fly, just walking around the car looking at things. And I feel like there's more stuff to take out than there should be, but this is what I kind of came up with. As you can see, drive shaft, mid pipe, steering shaft, radiator, engine harness, heater hoses, starter wires, important. The battery, just to make things easier to get to. And since we're dropping the whole subframe and you want to keep the brakes intact so you don't have to bleed them, separate the ball joint from the lower control arms. And then I'll show you kind of how I'm going to do that later once we get to that point. Getting jack stands or car dollies ready to have all that stuff set on the ground, and then lift the car up, and Bob's your uncle. All right, a few minutes and drive shaft, mid pipe are out. So what I'm gonna work on now is probably more on the top side. Or I actually got to disconnect the battery first and foremost. Disconnect the starter wiring, maybe just pull the whole battery harness out. And do some work under here. Just like that, we got the radiator out, and so far gonna keep the AC intact, I believe, without evacuating it. Fairly certain there's gonna be enough in these hoses to kick this compressor on this side of the little cross member there, the sway bar cross member. Have to tuck that hose in a little more. I'm actually gonna delete that hose now that it's all drained. Whew, and engine harness is gonna stay in there. There is one harness, I'm not sure what it goes to. I'm gonna have to follow that down and see where that ends up, if it even, I think I might go to the transmission, but I don't think so. And I still got the heater hoses to disconnect. And then we're off to getting stuff unhooked underneath. Starter wire still need to do that, I haven't done that. Making good progress here. It's been 2 hours, I'd say, so. Looking forward to seeing this thing just go and abandon ship. And not to mention I got brake booster hose off, and still got to disconnect the fuel line and some emissions lines over there. You know, all that little stuff that I might not have mentioned in my list. Fuel line's kind of a big one, but we use a quick disconnect tool there to get that, just get out of the way, super simple. All right, almost ready to drop this whole thing down. I just need to disconnect the ball joints. And obviously I can't do the cross member or the subframe bolts yet because it's not like I got on jack stands. So the only thing else I got to disconnect is the clutch line, which it's like right against the transmission tunnel, which is kind of weird. So I'm gonna lift the body off of the drivetrain a little bit. That should give me enough room to get in there with a quick disconnect the line. I'm not sure how else to do it besides doing that in this scenario. I'm not sure how to do it when you're doing regular transmission jobs, but maybe you got that tip, let me know in the comment section. But ball joints being separated, good thing these aren't tapered, they're just straight shanked. Disconnect those real quick. Then I'm gonna drop it on jack stands on the subframe and the rear transmission cross member, undo the subframe cross member bolts, lift the car up, and it should be free. 4.6 free. All right, internet, look what we just gave birth to. Now it's time to get a couple jacks and get this lower because it's not gonna sneak out here by itself. So what I'm gonna do is get it on some car dollies so that we can roll it out into this nice workspace. And I'll probably start doing coyote things in the morning because it's been a long night. So unless I get a frog hair up my ass, then we'll do it. And she's hungry, we're hungry. So that's where we're at, but good progress. All right, reporting from the engine bay. This is so cool. So I forgot to touch on that. I was able to swing that out of the way, so I don't have to evacuate the AC system at all. So it gets to stay charged. Looks like it might be leaking anyway. That's probably why I had to recharge it last year. So that might be on the docket in the near future. But for now, it can just stay working as well as it does. It's a pretty slow leak. But I will show you once we get the Coyote in here. I have the power by the hour adapter to the Coyote. The bolt pattern's the same, but it needs to be a little more forward, like by 3/8 of an inch or so. So we'll address that. We already have really with the part, so we're cruising. Got to delete the 3-valve computer, deleted a heater hose. Just gonna have to get some Coyote heater hoses. They'll bolt right up. All right, got the 3-valve valve train sitting over there, so I'm just gonna do some cleanup tonight, and then just like that, it'll be tomorrow morning. We're gonna put the Coyote drivetrain on the subframe. See you tomorrow. And it's morning, so actually it's afternoon, but it's the next day. So I'm gonna get this thing off the subframe, get that engine on an engine stand, and get the transmission mated to that. Not that transmission, but the other transmission I showed you in the other video. I just don't have it in the garage quite yet. So well, unfortunately, my time lapse didn't work on this, but we got them separated. Now I'll tell you. All right, as you can see, so the 3-valve all packaged up, ready to go to the next owner. Had a lot of people interested already just from Instagram stories and whatnot, wanting to buy this 3-valve. But if you're in the Phoenix area looking for a good running 3-valve, it's got a lot of high miles. It's got high miles, but it ran really great. It's on stock tune. Never had a problem with it. Like I said, drove to California a couple times with it. Got 24 miles to the gallon, but it's time for a Coyote. So now I'm gonna get over to actually gonna take off the motor mount brackets and transfer onto the Coyote, probably clean them up. And that should be all I need from that engine. I'm gonna reuse the starter. So I take that off in the time lapse, and let's get going here. I got my subframe and those motor mount brackets all cleaned up. Drug the transmission I'm going to use out of the shed. Just got to grab the XC clutch and flywheel, bring them over here, get them going on that. And then I'm going to measure my preload, and of course after I throw in the new throwout bearing in there. Also going to throw the brackets on the engine too. Let's do it. exiting clutch is on, and now I'm at the point where I got the throwout bearing in the transmission. I'm ready to measure that from this face to the throwout bearing surface. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to also take the measurement from here, this surface, to the pressure plate fingers, so I can see how much preload is going to be on the throwout bearing. And where it has it, it's supposed to be about 1 inch. So I got to do this to see if I got to shim the throwout bearing in the first place. I'm really hoping I don't, but I don't think my odds are that great from other people's experiences. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do this in 2 steps on this side anyway, because the fingers don't protrude past this face. So I'm going to take a measurement. I'll show you with a depth mic that I have. So go from here to here, and then measure from this point to the plate. It's important to get that plate to get an accurate measurement. That's about 1/8 of an inch. And then obviously just do a little math and see where you're at. Well, that's all I got time for day 2. I was hoping to have the whole drivetrain back in, but I want to take time to pressure wash, you know, the subframe and do everything right. Still got to measure that. So we'll definitely get that going on the next video. So, you know, is what it is. Trying to take my time not to rush things. I don't have a rush. So yeah, still having fun. And the second video will be coming shortly because I'll be working on this straight away tomorrow. So see you next time. Start tearing that thing. Jesus Christ.